Okay, alright.
Nova Zai, like you said, inventor, percussionist, musician, composer. And I like to kind of categorize my practice as an experience designer, because no matter what I'm doing, I'm trying to create an experience for the participant. Whether it's composing music, I want it to be an immersive environment for someone to enter into and discover what's there, play around, explore. And that's why I like to also design whatever kind of space the experience is being experienced within. So they'll comprise anything from the studio that I create music in. It's very meticulously designed, and that in and of itself was a creation for me. Or the space that my shows exist in is very much designed to be immersive. So whatever I'm doing, I just like to think of myself as an experience designer of sorts. So these are the Nova portals, offspring of Nova Zai. And essentially what they are an instrument that I designed to play music without touching anything. So I'll wave my hands back and forth and they make sound. They're unique because they give visual feedback. So if you're familiar with the theremin, you wave your hands back and forth across the X and Y axis, and it makes sound. But it's pretty hard to tell where you are in space, and it takes an extreme amount of skill and specificity to access notes and play them accurately. These definitely take skill, definitely take some practice, because it's also an instrument. Just like the drums, you can't just pick up sticks and start playing the drums masterfully. So, but the nice thing is that there's visual feedback to let you know where you are in space. So as you're waving your hands back and forth, you can see how far your hand is from the device based off the illumination of the LEDs. Prior to claiming the name Nova Zai, my music existed in a way, my composition specifically, not necessarily my drumming, but my productions, my songs. They existed kind of in this open space. There wasn't really a commitment to any particular overarching narrative with the sound. And what I mean by that is I guess a lot of people understand it today as brand, so to speak. Like, what is your brand identity? And that word kind of feels a little cheap in a way, but in another sense, it's actually very accurate for creating some kind of cohesion with whatever you're trying to present to the world. And so once I claimed the name Nova Zai, all of a sudden I had this newfound understanding for how my music should take form and take shape and tell a story, even from release to release, So, and it also even influenced the way I sound design. Now, part of that is me just developing my own sonic identity and getting better at making sound. But again, having, like you said, this persona of Nova Zai, this being, this entity that is just like raw light, and having a way to communicate that to the world definitely, like you said, cemented more of an identity. And I like that word cement because it's so concrete, literally, And having the words, the nomenclature Nova Zai, as a tool for reinforcing this philosophical expression via aesthetic, via music, design of all kinds. Yeah, it just served as a vehicle for me to better understand myself and what the package of myself, the full expression of my creative being is to the world in a really direct and suffice way. So when I first got to Michigan, when I first got to University of Michigan, I remember walking down a pathway with my friend and describing this addendum that I wanted to make for my drum set. I wanted something that would play the sound of the drum in reverse as I approached the drum, so that it would play, and then I would hit it, and then the regular sound would happen. But it was more of a comprehensive sound, really tracking that between motion of playing the drum, so it's not all just one directional. You know, you can go both ways. So bending and stretching sound in space. Then an artist named Pamela Z came to Michigan and gave a lecture and performance. And I saw her performing with this box that she was using to raise volume and just manipulate sound in space. But it was like this box that was in front of her that she would play with, and she would also sing, and the box would affect her sound, her voice as well. So fast forward to my junior year, I'm in this class where we're charged with the task of making an instrument out of sensors. And I remember having a bunch of different designs, like probably at least 50 of different ways that I wanted to basically extrapolate that idea that I came into school with of that reverse sound with the drum and locate it in space. Finally, I found some lampshades in my basement of the house that I was living in at the time, and I put them on cymbal stands around me, and I just started miming motions. You know, I was like, what if it just did this? And then I made a track. I went into Ableton and made a track to the video. So I basically sonified, I know that's not necessarily a word, but I'm making it a word. Sonified the movements, you know, to basically create the vision for what eventually became the Nova portals. And I've been thinking about this recently because, you know, as we get older, myself, Nico, and Julian, we are just getting closer as brothers. And I think back to my first ever gig in 7th grade was with Julian and Nico and our friend Liam Cunningham on bass. And it was Nico's sister's birthday party. And I remember I had to set, we were, for whatever reason, running late. I remember it not being our fault, so I'm not trying to shame our past selves, but I had to set up super quick. I had 5 minutes to set up. And the setup time that I took, it was like, I did it within 2 minutes or so, set my whole kit up. And that was basically my test for the band at that point, you know, their band, because they were all older than me, and I was in 7th grade, they were in high school, you know, and so the fact that I was able to get it done in that moment, I guess proved my worthiness to hang with them. And then also obviously playing, but like just the professionalism that I carried at that time. So that was my first gig. That was my first time getting money, getting paid to play my instrument. Nico's mom slid $60 into my shirt pocket. I'll never forget that. And, you know, that was Nico's family. That's now my bandmate, and we've been playing music ever since, you know. And you ask how did the Juju exchange come to be? I feel like it was just us being friends, being real tight. You know, I think back to going to Nico's crib, actually not too far from here, in Rogers Park. And my iPod at the time, 256 gigs of music. Mostly, maybe not mostly, but a large part of it was his library. You know, like a lot of songs that we were just passing back and forth. And yeah, that man was listening to a lot of music, a lot of brilliant music. And I was what, 12, 13? And, you know, first getting exposed to Miles Davis, Take 6, all these, you know, incredible artists. Musically, those are my early formations, and they were occurring alongside Julian and Nico. Julian was the one bringing me around Nico and friends and Kids These Days, their old band. And that early brotherhood is what served as a foundation for what now has become the Juju Exchange all these years later and continues to be our guiding light. I would say the Portals, both performing with them and producing with them, have completely changed my understanding of composition and the way sound moves in general through my practice as an arranger, as a composer, and a sound designer. It's even touched the way I play the drums, like the way I move when I'm playing. They influence the way I move around the kit, that way I move around the drum set. And, you know, even just where I'll place certain elements, certain symbols. Yeah, it's like I'm playing and I'm like, I'll strike like that in the same way that I'll do, you know, something like that. And even when I'm not necessarily playing the portals, directly, when I'm composing and I'm like here looking at a screen, I'm still trying to evoke that sense of movement. So even if I'm like composing something, I think about my composition very visually. I think about different sounds moving through the space as if they're actually as if you're actually immersed in the sound world. I compose a lot of headphones to kind of get that. And so my practice with the Nova portals in general has really influenced the way I even think about sound design beyond the direct gestures. Jazz RX is an album that we essentially created to engage deeper and more intimately with our fan base. It's a body of work where, specifically on Patreon, we were receiving prompts from our patrons, and there were emotional, scenario, whatever kind of prompts they wanted to give us that we would then score music to, almost like it was a movie, like short little vignettes. And it was supposed to be like sonic medicine in a way, where we would just do our best to encapsulate the emotion or whatever kind of scene as best we could compositionally, so that it just felt like listening to it appropriately soundtracked whatever the person was going through. And in so doing, it really healed us. It really was meaningful to the people that were receiving it. And so that's kind of how the whole RX nature of the music emerged. My favorite way probably has been what I've been doing just now, just like the fact that this one, I was about to say, and then I just got into it. This one specifically is controlling pitch. And when I'm interacting with each of them, I ascribe to them different sonic qualities. Right now, this one's controlling pitch and this one's controlling the delay of that pitch. So I strum, and it's almost like you're strumming an invisible harp, You're just like stroking the space, and each increment of space is ascribed to a note. Right? And then this portal right here controls the duration of that note, You see, 888 is a body of work, long form body of work, that is my earnest attempt at displaying the sonic identity of the Nova portals in the most clear way possible. So when people talk about or ask me about the Nova portals, their main question is, what do they sound like? When I'm telling about them at a party or when they're not actually immediately in front of the Nova portals. 888 is essentially a metaphor for the 3 Nova portals that I'm using. And they're each portals to infinity of sorts, infinite creative potential, hence the 8, you feel me? And they're just this opportunity for the portals to really take up space musically, for them to be musically contextualized in a way that's both emotionally inspiring and performance, like the performance of them is very clearly understood through the music. I would hope that you would come to an 888 show, listen to the record, and expect to gain a very clear understanding of what this novel invention is, what it sounds like, and leave being able to sing your favorite moment from having experienced the Nova portals in action. What's good? This is Nova Zai, inventor of the Nova portals, and you're watching Profile.